Consulting's such a racket. Waltz in, propose sweeping changes, and not have to do any implementation. I mean, that's literally the point. I wouldn't call it a racket, though. Good consultants are good. They're literally being hired in because they are... When you're a consultant, you are typically, if you're from one of the bigger consulting firms or from one that is, you know, has accolades, those are the people that are simply really good in that field. They are just that good. They're more efficient. They're faster. So they are brought in because they are subject matter experts. They're brought in to make major changes. And then when you're saying they don't have to do implementation, yeah, they don't. You hire someone who is, you know, less expensive to keep doing the implementation, or maybe they're like a maintenance guy for a program or whatever. But the thing is, they set up everything. So the consultants will write up documentation. Here's why we made this, all these presentations of all these things. They document literally everything. And then they do onboarding. So a lot of the time they will onboard existing or new workers onto the thing so that it can be implemented. A lot of the time consulting firms will have their full team go into a company, make these huge changes, and then they'll leave 2 of those workers in that company for an extra 6 months for a transitional period until that company, sometimes they'll even help them with hiring, but until they hire, you know, their own people to do it. So you pay the consultants a big fee, but they go in and they fix everything. They're fixers. Obviously, there are going to be some consultants that are bad. There are going to be some that are bad, but from the bigger, larger companies or from like the boutique, smaller consulting firms that are just really like well-known in that field, they're usually good, to be honest. It's just scary because they're people you don't know and they come in and then they suggest a bunch of shit and you're like, wait. Huh? Yeah, what Blazing said, you get someone that can just tell you what to do to solve the hard problem. It saves the company millions. Like you said it's worth it if the company is being mismanaged. Exactly. So I was going to use Twitch as an example. Let's say they're just so set in their ways. Let's say one of their issues with the product, with you know, how things are being done UX-wise, are kind of centered around the same minds being put toward these things over and over. If they realize that there is like a really, really big issue and they need sweeping changes, they could keep firing workers and bringing in new ones, firing workers, bringing in new ones. But what if their hiring is bad? What if they just keep hiring the wrong people and their hiring is bad? What happens when companies realize that is often they'll go and hire a consulting firm and they'll be like, we need the fixers. We need to put down a bunch of money and we need to get people who are subject matter experts. Let's find a team from a consulting firm that has worked on, you know, these products. They've fixed up these and those companies, etc. Right? And you pull those people in. And then what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to come in, make those huge changes, those shakeups, and then help you put the right people in the right spots and train them. If they're good at what they're doing, that's what they do, right? And yeah, they do help you hire people. Sometimes you just keep one of their consultants on retainer for like 10, 20 hours a week in perpetuity for like years, you know, until you hire someone in. And if you don't, you just keep that guy on. So he's always there to do oversight or to work on a thing. And it can be really good. But if the company isn't good at it or the team that they get isn't good at it and they kind of like change things and then leave you flat on your face, then they're shit consultants, right? But the biggest part of them is usually that they do training, they do onboarding, they do documentation, right? And they put a lot of stuff in front of the people that are going to do that work in perpetuity, who actually work for the company or are W-2'd with them. And they leave them with all the tools that they need to be able to keep it running and keep it going and to understand it. So they're supposed to be brought in as like a fix-it team, but you know, if they're not good, you pay a bunch of people to come in, say a bunch of shit, and then leave people high and dry. So that's why there are certain consulting firms that are really big and really well known, and people tend to just hire from those same companies a lot because you feel like you at least have that guarantee that they're gonna do it. And you know, they have a lot of people. If you're unsatisfied and you're like, hey, they didn't really do the training part right, they can cycle a lot of people in and out that know what they're doing. But yeah, sometimes you have to make the hardest decision of all. Yeah, consultants sometimes will make suggestions and be like, hey, I know you have a team of 10 handling this thing, but you actually need a team of 6 and you need 2 people that know how to do this thing specifically. You're gonna have to fire this many people. We've done an analysis of how these people work. Here it is. You make that decision. That's what a lot of them will do. And that's a rough thing. They basically get brought in to be the bad guy a lot of the time, you know. There's also cases where companies hire consultants, don't want to keep paying them and ask them to leave after the job is only half done. That happens a lot. Yeah, a lot of the time when people perceive that a consultant was hired in and then like left without doing their job, it's that the company is like, damn, these consultants bill for really expensive hours. And you know, they technically made this thing for us. They made these changes already. So let's just get rid of them and we'll have our people pick it up. not yet realizing that the consultants were like not done training. And even if they say that, they half the time won't listen and just kick them out. So, you know, it's a lot of the time it falls on the company still for mismanaging the whole thing. Sounds like you gotta have a crazy skill set to fix stuff a whole company couldn't. Yeah, they're usually, it's hard to get a job as a consultant. You get paid a lot, but it's the kind of person that like, they typically just have wide knowledge on a lot of these things. Maybe they've worked in a lot of different industries, so they're able to apply knowledge from one to another. And so that experience being very, again, wide-ranging helps a lot, because most companies' issues are they're too big and they're too set in their ways. They're too old, right? So those people come in and, you know, they're able to do those things. But it's really hard to get those jobs because you have to have weird work experience usually to like make the cut. But they get paid a lot. They get paid a lot. But the work is very difficult, genuinely. The work is hard. So, jack of all trades, master of none, but better than a master of one. No, I hate that phrase. I hate that phrase. They're just genuinely good at a lot of different things, usually. Straight up. That's why they're able to have that sort of job. Again, this is for, I'm talking about the ones that are good at their job. There's some that are not. And, you know, I wouldn't apply that to all of them, but, you know. The sad part is rarely the people responsible for the company being mismanaged that are being replaced when the consultants come in. Yeah, like they're not going to replace the higher ups. But the cool thing about the consultants is that they can say that usually. Like they get brought in and they'll be like, I've heard a consultant say to someone else, you know, you could do this, you could do that, but realistically your COO is the problem. He's a fucking idiot. Like, I've like heard that sort of thing enough times, and like that's the kind of stuff that you bring them in for. Is they say that because, like someone mentioned earlier, their job security is not like on the table, so they're able to say this stuff. They're able to point out the actual issue, and that's why a lot of people that are higher up will also just throw out consultants sometimes because they get offended. They get offended, man. But it's true. It's true. Imagine getting paid to say that. Yeah. They won't always say it like that, you know, sometimes you'll hear people say it more like, you know, hey, realistically, like, you haven't shored up these operations in this way, so you need someone to be, like, head of operations under you to do this, right? They just point it out. They just point it out. You need to hire for this role because you're not doing it, right? Yeah, you've worked as a consultant. You said one of the hardest things is when you get brought into a company that just wants a magic fix for their problems and doesn't understand that it's a long and arduous process to do it right. Yeah, and then they're so surprised at the billing cycle. Yeah, you're gonna need 20 hours a week of these different people, each a team of this size, and you're gonna need them for a year. And they're like, a year? Yes. Yes. Exactly. I don't know, the world of business is funny, and it's really funny to see people in positions where they get to walk in and be like, you all suck. That guy's doing his job, though. It's always funny. Ooh, paying consultants for 6 weeks for them to recommend the solution the engineering team originally proposed 6 months ago because management didn't believe them. Yeah. Isn't that so shit? Isn't that so shit? I've witnessed that. I have witnessed that firsthand. Consultant walks into room, says, here's my proposal for what you need to do. Engineer stands up and goes, I've been saying this for 6 months, and walks out. I have watched that literally happen while sitting at a table with a bunch of people. Like, dude was so pissed. He was so pissed because he would, like, they pay these consultants. Like, I think this one that walked in and said that was getting billed at like $600 an hour because it was like a short, like he was supposed to come in for this one proposal and like one set of the implementation. He was getting billed really high for it. Where his company was, he was probably making like $200-300 an hour for it. But Jesus Christ, dude. I understand that guy being so mad and walking out. Completely understand. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. See, C-suite brings in consultants, and consultants tell them the problem is in the C-suite, and then the consultants try to tell them to hire one of them as an interim CTO, and then they pay crazy money for it. That's the strat. I've seen that happen too. Yeah. I don't know. Offices, man. So crazy. So crazy. I think Twitch needs to hire consulting first. I doubt they have the money. I really doubt it.